we can reminisce and go down memory lane, which is what I want to do because there's so many good stories there. But come to the first episode, babe.
Come on now.
Okay, so story podcast came from,
Are
you know.
we relating this back to, I guess, what they call the Hawaiian diaspora?
Yeah, interesting enough, when I brought it up, it up in the document, the bottom, I sent it to you, the document.
I saw
I put
that.
some of the notes there on the bottom, because there is a large, a lot of people who left, who are leaving Hawaii now because of
Yeah,
some different reasons.
I think
Yeah.
more Hawaiians live outside of Hawaii than in. Um, I don't know. When it comes to connection, I can't tell if it's am I not as connected to people here because I don't know. Does it have something to do with the way I was raised and people are different? Does it would I still kind of not be as close to as many people, or would I have as much friends as I did when I lived there if I never left? I just don't know
Hmm.
what I always think about what my life would have been like if I never left Hawaii. I don't know if that
Yeah, no, that's a real question. Like,
mhm.
it's almost like a fantasy now that I have,
Yeah, it's such a
you know?
weird thing to think about, especially now. I think I texted you this that everybody in Hawaii is so Hawaiian. There are
Right.
so much more Hawaiian than they were when we were growing up and
Right.
living
I
there.
know it's
And
olelo everywhere. The
everybody speaks
conversation.
Hawaiian now. Every
Right.
school like has Hawaiian classes. If you don't know like then you're behind. And I
Right.
feel like especially growing up in Waianae, everybody in Waianae was Hawaiian growing up. It,
But the language wasn't encouraged. Like, when I
mhm.
was growing up, when it kind of started was, I think it's like Hawaiian immersion program, where Punana Leo, right? That was the one. So in the earlier 80s, it was all coming up, and everyone was starting to, not everyone, but a lot of people started talking about, Hawaiian immersion programs. And like Auntie Dion was very involved. I mean, she, at least her family taught her how to, speak Hawaiian, and they would speak Hawaiian, more so in their family environments, and not out in public. But now you can go to like the beach and you can hear it. You
I
can go
know
to the
it's on
stores, you can
on
hear
TikTok. People are doing Loleo Kala like outfit of the day in Hawaiian only.
it. Right. So with that coming out, do you feel like you're kind of missing out on that
I
part?
do feel a
Or
little bit different, and I've always been so proud to be like super Hawaiian compared to like a lot of people that I know, whatever that
oh
means.
yeah, no, you
But
have scent of Hawaiian.
I know,
Yeah.
but blood quantum is but
I
knowing that I don't know, I guarantee you so many of my peers have like just are so beyond what I know now, and it's just I guess um because of proximity.
Mhm.
Uh
Mhm.
I I'm not taking any Hawaiian classes in college. I didn't take any in school because I just it's not offered to me. I don't
Yeah, I
know.
was gonna say it wasn't offered. It
Mm-mm.
wasn't offered. You couldn't find, Hawaiian language classes. Like at UH, they did have some, and then when, we dancing hula, you get
Mhm.
all of that, and that was very common to get that. But no, not like it is now. Now there's so many opportunities. Like,
I
are
know.
you, yeah, aren't you teaching baby? Like, isn't he on?
Well, he was in a virtual class for a preschool in Hawaii that does they do bilingual and immersion Hawaiian only classes, and we were in a bilingual class. Um
Right.
so I guess it is important for like him to learn too, and I did learn a lot just by going to his classes with him. So that was
Yeah, because
good.
it's like baby steps, right? So you start
Yeah.
with the baby words, yeah,
Mhm.
and it is helping, yeah. I know. I mean, that would have been something, man, if we could have learned more. Um, what do you think is one of the, I mean, just knowing what you know now, I'm sure there's a lot of like documented history reasons, like
Mhm.
facts why it was suppressed. the language was suppressed,
Mhm.
and why it's coming up more now. But what do you think, just for you, what do you think the reason is, that it's so prevalent? I don't even know if that's the right word to
Well,
use,
I
but that it's
think,
much
yeah,
more.
it's because I originally, I guess Christianity made sure that nobody spoke it. And then I guess
Right.
a resurgence in the 70s with like the Hokulea, people really getting right back into Hawaiian culture finally.
Yeah.
And I guess
And yeah, the
just
voyaging, and yeah. Right. Right.
now, it's being offered in public schools. I think when I was leaving Waianae High School, it was a language, and they did like natural resources. You could learn about like Hawaiian living and stuff like that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know if it is, and I think it also has a lot to do with movements on the mainland, like Black Lives Matter and stuff like that. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people look to their own culture and like, why aren't we preserving what we have? And I'm sure that played into that a lot too.
Right. And that, I think you bring up a big, an important subject, is like people are gravitating, because it's almost like we're floating. We're floating out here. Everyone's trying to find some place to connect, or to relate to, or to be a part of. You see these big, massive groups of people who can find like some sort of common ground,
Yeah.
especially in like this today's political environment. Everybody wants to, I'm not gonna get political on anybody, everybody wants a sense of belonging. And I
Mhm.
think, with my understanding and what I am noticing, is that people really want a sense of belonging.
Mhm.
So if you can go back to your own roots and your own like culture, your own bloodlines, I mean, not
Yeah.
necessarily just, the big percentages too. It's like, like for me, I'm, multicultural, right? And
Mhm.
I was primarily raised in the Hawaiian culture, even though grandma, your grandma, my mom, you know, was is Caucasian, and she's from
Yeah.
Oregon. She came to Hawaii. She's Haole, but she connects with the Hawaiian culture.
I
You know,
know. I think it's such a funny experience because I think everybody in Hawaii is multicultural. Everybody is proud to be like mixed race, and
right,
everybody has
right.
so um but when you come to the mainland, I think race is such a different construct here. I don't know, being
Mhm.
multicultural, multi-race, like multiracial, I guess, is I don't want to say it's a confusing subject, but I think a lot of people don't really understand what to treat you like.
The
Um,
definition of multicultural definitely got
yeah.
a translation somewhere,
Hmm.
or just not multicultural, but the
I
definition of
think because
being
like on the census, you're Black, white, Hispanic, or Asian.
right,
Um, and
right.
they just want me to be one of those, and I can't.
Yeah, I know. I always choose other now. Yeah. Or maybe just like to fuck with them, like choose Hispanic or Asian, or just to see,
I'm different on every
depending on my
form.
mood. Yeah, I know. It depends on my mood and what I wake up feeling like, you know. Um,
And I
yeah.
think, especially when we first moved away, I think we first moved to Las Vegas. Every Hawaiian first moves to Las Vegas, so it's not that big of a culture shock. But here on the East Coast, for a lot of people, I'm the first Hawaiian they've ever met. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know. Me too. Here, it's like a celebrity. Oh, you're from Hawaii?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I mean, from the West Coast, you have lots of.
Hmm.
They've they've really planted themselves, transplanted themselves there, and it's making its way across the country. But yeah, so tell me about some of those experiences of people like
I mean, I
discovering
don't
their
know.
Hawaiian.
Because when I moved to the East Coast, I moved to Maryland, like the DMV area, DC, Maryland, Virginia. I lived on an Air Force base, so it was pretty like
Diverse.
diverse. There were people from all
Yeah.
kinds of groups, and people had been stationed in Hawaii. It's a big military hub, so nobody was like shocked to like see a Hawaiian. But when I met like regular people in the area, I think they really didn't know where to place me. And for some people, I was their foreign friend, even though I'm not. And for
They're foreign. It's so funny.
or
I know.
for some people, their Asian friend or their Filipino friend, which
Yeah.
to Filipinos on the mainland, I'm not Filipino because
Right.
I'm like a fourth generation Filipino. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I'm
Right.
not real. I can't really relate to the Filipino story the way they
The
can. So
culture, I know. Yeah.
it was hard for a lot of people to place me, and I guess hard for me to find my own groups. I don't know. It was daunting, especially in Las Vegas. I had Hawaiian kids in all my classes. I could eat anything that I ate or be around or listen to the music, anything. But when I moved here, I would walk into a room and it would be like when I went to college for the first time, a group of white kids, one Hispanic person, and me. Like, or the opposite, or it'd be a group of black people, two Hispanic and me. Like
Yeah.
so nobody really knew what to where to place me, and I kind of didn't really know where to place me too. And I wonder if that's why I have a hard time relating to people.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
guess it's similar to what you said, having to go back to Hawaii to get those same connections that we know.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think when I can relate to that too. It's like when we moved from Las Vegas, because it wasn't that big of a culture shock because there's lots of Hawaiians in Vegas. There's lots of Hawaiian
We had
events,
family
like
there,
still
so it wasn't like
family. Yeah.
isolating.
Yeah, we can still kind of do some of the stuff that we grew up, like our traditions,
Hmm.
surrounding holidays and stuff. But then when I moved to Boston, I really, even though I had, lots of Caucasian friends. I mean, they're all mixed too, you know, Irish, whatever. But I gravitated towards the my friends from DR, like Islanders, you
Yeah.
know, because they all kind of have the same kind of cultural ways of how they, you know, how they relate to their families, how they take care of their parents, how they, have multi-generational people living in under one
Hmm.
roof,
Hmm.
and that's like what it is in Hawaii, and that's just what we're used to. That's just a way of life.
Hmm.
Lots of families in Hawaii, in order to survive, there's multi-generational people living in one house. It's like when you go to Hawaii, I mean, you can't buy a house there now. The cost of living is so high. It's
Hmm.
next to impossible. And even if you buy a house, it's like it's almost nothing, not worth it. But it's like you can inherit a house, like the generations do that. It's like you just don't have that connection. So when I was in Boston, I was there. It's nice to be here in New York for, a lot of different reasons. But I think friendship wise, I think I was so much more comfortable in Boston than I really am here. And we've been here for probably 3 years now. And I really don't have any close friends like I had in Boston, and it was mainly due to, my friends from DR. I could relate the way they talk, and they're very robust, and the way they do things. And it's just, it was nice. And then here, like where I live too, it's primarily, Jewish community, which is nice. I mean, my husband is Jewish, right? So my family, and I love the culture, but it's very different. And so it's hard for me to connect and relate, and I haven't met one person from Hawaii yet. One person who even, I mean, lots of people who vacation.
It's also oh God. Anytime somebody hears them from where I gotta hear their story.
Oh, I know. It's like, oh my God, did you know anyone in the Maui fires?
I know.
Do you know? So,
Oh,
I mean, they mean what they just don't know. It's just so,
I
it's a,
know. And even when I do meet somebody from Hawaii, it's sometimes hard for me to connect to them. It just, yeah, we do have that in common, but that's it almost. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, right.
I don't know. I also have a hard time because not only being from Hawaii is isolating, but being from Waianae can be very isolating. It doesn't have
Oh,
the
tell
best.
me about tell me about some wine ice stories that you miss or don't miss.
I don't really know. I feel privileged to be from Waianae because I feel like, especially
Me
growing up,
too.
maybe in your time, it's where Waianae was known for where if you're from Waianae, you're Hawaiian. That's where the Hawaiians live. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And
Yeah, even
especially,
my husband is proud that I'm from Waianae. When we're somewhere, we're in Vegas, when we're like, "Oh, you're from Hawaii, where?" And he's like, "Waianae."
Waianae.
And they're like, "Oh, Waianae."
I know.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I just felt like and not only everybody from Waianae is so Hawaiian, the connection that people in Waianae have to Hawaiian culture,
Mhm.
being like, I'm a third generation steersman, you know what I'm
Right,
saying? We
yeah,
were our whole family was part of the same canoe club. I got
yeah.
to field trips up into the mountains and stuff like that. So I
Shout
do
out
feel
Hawaii
like
Canoe Club, Imua.
I
Yeah.
so I do feel like I got to grow up super in the culture. I'm not trying to say that like people from town don't know the culture the way that we did, but
Yeah, no, no, I
I
know.
do feel
Yeah.
like maybe it would have been an easier transition if I was a person from town rather than a person from the end of the freeway.
An easier transition coming over to the East Coast or,
Or maybe just in the mainland in general. I think by the
yeah,
time I had moved from Las Vegas to the East Coast, I was like ready to shed that. And I think that
yeah,
another reason that I do feel guilty, a lot of Hawaiians do have trouble when they leave because the cultural differences are just too much. The people are not as nice, the food is not as good, the weather is
mhm.
super depressing. So I can
I know.
understand why they want to go back, and especially right now when everybody's so Hawaiian, they are calling people back. Come home,
Right,
take your land back. So
right,
I
right.
understand that, but I definitely have always felt um not to say not like a big fish in a little pond because not I'm not saying that Hawaii or Waianae was a small pond, but I felt by the time I left, I knew I was ready to go.
Yeah,
I didn't feel homesick. I knew that like okay, it's time for me to move on to the next part of my life, and I know it's not going to be here.
right. Do you feel like living here on the East Coast or in the mainland, as we call it, that you have more opportunity to or
Yeah,
different or what kind of maybe I should rephrase it. What kind of opportunities do you think that you have here that would have been more difficult in Hawaii other than like the whole travel aspect,
yeah,
like
I
driving?
think maybe just the ability to shed the identity that I made in Hawaii. I don't know. I just got to move to the mainland and create like a
Yeah.
whole new person and completely be who I wanted to be. Not like
While
waiting
being yourself. Yeah.
while being
Yeah.
myself. Yeah, because like
Right.
obviously I loved everything about like going to the beach every day and like being super Hawaiian, but like when it came down to like education and like
Mhm.
loving to learn and stuff like that, it wasn't something that was super rewarded in our community.
Yeah.
So I just
I
feel like I
know.
was able to reach for more. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I know. It's like even I mean we did have opportunity. It was what we made it. Like I went to nursing school on you know,
I'm sure I
parts
could have done everything that
yeah.
I've done in the mainland there, but um, I was able to do it without the expectation, without anybody who knew who I was thinking about what I should do. I
Right.
don't know. I
Right.
was able to completely decide on my own without other people who knew me from when I was young.
Right. Right. I can definitely say raising 4 children in Hawaii, was very different than raising, my one daughter in the mainland. And there's but for so many different reasons. I mean, for us is more personal, like, in Hawaii, and maybe not for all Hawaiians, but there is the whole big extended family,
Hmm.
oh, you go to this grandma's house, you go to that grandma's house, go auntie's house, all the cousins coming over. So all the cousins are super close. I mean, they're, you guys, your cousins
Yeah,
are best friends,
yeah, I
you
grew up
know?
with cousins as best friends. Your kids, other cousins, I considered my cousins. Like
Right,
it
right,
was a huge extended family.
right, right. Like the Materraces is all,
Yeah.
everybody was all related. Yeah, like that's your cousin. Yeah, yeah. It's different. Just being it, and plus, I mean, there was so many different factors, but it is just the life experience, like raising them in Hawaii and having all of that extra support is different. Not to say that my in-laws don't support me now, they do, but it's very different. You
Yeah,
know,
especially when like your kids had cousins their age and could
right?
just, all right, you just go by the other kids your age, or you go to school with them
Yeah.
and you guys all have the same routines.
Yeah, and then people like I went to school with, my childhood friends were my best friends growing up. I mean, we all lived in the community, we all raising our kids together, we all experienced similarly, very similar, having
Yeah,
similar
I
experience.
didn't go to kindergarten where I lived. I went to kindergarten where you lived.
You're right. Right. Because the house is right across the street from the school. Oh man, well, growing up in Miley, raising them in Miley, and no matter how close I lived to the school, they still went to school late most of the time. Life was just happening. But yeah, man. So I mean, and I miss that too because it is kind of country living in Waianae. There's like
Yeah.
chickens
I don't know if
everywhere.
it's different
You know?
now. I mean, every time I go back to Hawaii, it feels like a different place. I mean, it feels
Yeah,
more magical to experience for me because, like, the further away I am from living there, every time I go back, it's more shocking to see. It's like, wow, I'm
right,
from this beautiful place. But every
right.
time I go back, it's also so different from when I was there.
Yeah, I mean, things change, and also, got to remember as we get older, our perspective on life changes. I mean, it's almost like when hearing people, nowadays, my generations, they're like, oh, Christmas isn't the same. Oh yeah, Christmas isn't the same. And yeah, it's not the same, but it's still like, for our kids when they're little, it's still magical for them. But it's that your perspective on life as we get older it changes. So each time I go home, you notice, like the crime and the homeless and this, but there's also, it's like, wow, I grew up on this beach, and just at the beach and you see the turtles coming up. Like we were at Pokai Bay, you see the turtles now because the harbor's cleaner, so they come up, closer to the shoreline. And I was down at Makua Bay, just driving around. You can see the dolphins out, like, and that was like normal for us when we were paddling canoe.
I
You
know.
see the dolphins, you see the shark fin. Every once in a while you see like the stingrays jump, and it was just normal life. And I think that we had, or at least, I mean, I'm much older than you, but it was like such a kind of like a golden childhood. Like we were very fortunate to be in the family we were in. I mean, not perfect, but
I know
we
that's
were never
also another
hungry.
thing.
Huh?
That's also another thing that makes me feel like, am I missing Hawaii or am I missing my specific family?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I do, I feel very fortunate hearing a lot of the stories. Like I know we weren't perfect, but I never felt like I was never afraid to be at home with Papa and Grandma. I always felt safe. We always had food. I mean, and I think the way, because Grandma was from Oregon, and now being in Hawaii, anytime there was any kind of change in weather, she would like celebrated it in her own way. She's like, oh, it's raining, because Hawaii, it's the same weather every day, which you love. When, I mean, especially being here when it's only like 25 degrees outside, and we just had that super cold front that came through. It was
I
like 6
know.
degrees here. How cold did it get there?
I don't like it 10.
Yeah, it totally sucked, right? Even the, I mean, watching the snow come down is exciting. Yeah, your little Hawaiian heart is like, oh yay,
And
it's
a few
snowing.
days
And then
later, I'm like,
I know, I know. And when it's raining out, like, my family
but I
here,
do
they're like,
appreciate all seasons. I don't know if I would have if I grew up in it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's for real. That's 100%
Especially
true.
in Las Vegas, it definitely is not all four seasons the way it's all four seasons here.
Yeah, but there was a fall. I mean, some of the trees where there were trees, the trees did change leaves and it did get cold. I remember Halloween was really cold. But yeah, but like when it rains here, like people is like, "Oh, it's horrible. It's so depressing. It's ugly. It's gross out." But in Hawaii, when it would rain, it'd be like, "Oh, yeah, it's all cozy." And so I
No, it
try
would be
to
like, you
instill
guys want to drive around to see waterfalls?
that.
Like,
Right. you know and I think grandma really, I mean, a lot of Hawaiians that really instilled that in us, though, like in especially like in me, and then I think I instilled that in my kids too. It's like time to be cozy, time to let's all watch movies, because before we didn't have, couldn't just watch your phones or your computer, whatever. We all had to, when the movie came on, that's the time we watched it. 8 o'clock was movie time, because that's when the movies would come on, or that's when the new episodes would come on. So, we would appreciate, at least I appreciate, like when it rains. I like when it rains. I like when it's cloudy. But I guess if I had to work in it and drive out in it all the time, I wouldn't like it.
but I also wonder if that goes back to like a Hawaiian appreciation for weather and
Nature.
elements,
Yeah.
nature.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I'm sure.
yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, do you, so yeah, let's talk about that. Do you miss like hearing the stories about the gods, and the culture? Like, I remember growing up, and we had that book. I think it was Ahapua'a. We had that
I don't
book,
I don't know.
and he was like, I think he was like the pig. He
Yeah.
was he was a pig god, like he was a boy, and he turned into like this big boar. And then there were books there about Pele and Hi'iaka.
I have a bunch of like little kid version, like board book versions of those things for Kamea. I also have like my dad brought me like my own childhood books about myths and legends and Waianae and stuff.
Oh
So
yeah,
I still have
that's
a bunch of stuff like that. And I'm so interested in learning that kind of stuff. I don't know, it's a lot more accessible now, especially we can like just order a book online. I can get it.
right. You can Google and read
Yeah.
stories and stuff. Yeah,
Hmm.
but I do miss that. Growing up with at least raising the kids with that cultural background, and like the wind. Who is the god of the wind? Lono was god of the wind. Yeah, that was
And so in the preschool that my son was just in, we did, I think it was last school year, a bunch of different hinas. So they were like lesser gods and goddesses, but like Hina Kiahi, Hina of the fire, who put her body in an emu and came out and was food for all the people who were starving. And
hmm.
it was like five different Hinas, and we spent all year just talking about all their different, I guess, powers. I don't know. It's like super interesting.
Yeah,
And
that
so
is. I didn't hear about that right up. All the
mhm,
Hinas. Hmm.
super interesting stuff that I never got to learn in school, but I'm sure all the kids now are getting to learn in school.
Right. So that's pretty awesome, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and everything that's going on in Hawaii, like you had mentioned earlier about, go back and claim your land. There
Mhm.
is a lot of talk about that now, because they're finally, people are wising up. I mean, they always had like smart people and knew where to look, but they always got, oh no, don't look over here, look over there, was deflected, you
Yeah.
know. But now they're more assertive and are willing to dig, yeah, that can dive deep.
I actually we were talking earlier about like the wave of like Hawaiianness and like what kind of brought that on. And I know I said like the Hokula in the 70s, but TMT in like 20, when was that? 2017, 16, around then, when they
Yeah.
were trying to build that telescope on Mauna Kea.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a huge resurgence for a lot of people to learn more about Hawaiian culture, about why that mountain was sacred, and they got to go up there. And I think a lot of
Because
people,
all cameras on us, it
mhm,
was such a
mhm.
huge platform. Yeah.
And I think Hawaiian culture is so, obviously it's American culture, but it's so Hollywoodized. It's so
Oh, yeah.
touristized. It's so
Over the years, I think they're starting to get away from
exploited. Yeah, I think they're getting away from that, but I think for the average person, you think about Hawaii, you think about, I don't know, Waikiki, you think about like Shirley Temple and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Elvis is
yeah,
associated with
Elvis,
Hawaii.
yeah, Blue Hawaii, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
And in my opinion, that's more what's the cheeseburger in Paradise guy?
The cheeseburger in Paradise guy.
He's like a Florida tropical.
I don't
You
know.
know what I'm talking? Margaritaville? What's his name?
Oh, I'm
Oh,
gonna have to, yeah, I'm gonna have to Google that.
that plastic lay, really bright, colorful shirt, aesthetic as Hawaiian. But it's
Right.
not.
Yeah, I know. Cheeseburger in Paradise?
Yeah. What's his name?
Jimmy Buffett.
Yeah,
Jimmy
Jimmy
Buffett, yeah.
Buffett. He,
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
a lot of people have like a Jimmy Buffett idea of Hawaii, but it's really not.
yeah.
I think it is hard for me to talk about Hawaiian culture like this because I moved away so long ago.
Mhm.
Um,
What do you think that is? Like you feel like you don't have like the right or the connection
maybe
or
I
the
do have,
knowledge?
I know that I have the right. I'm not sure if I have like the knowledge or the same connection or even, um, yeah, maybe the right. I don't know. There are other people
Yeah.
who are out there who know more and who have, and I also feel very protective. It's part of my
Oh, the
identity, and when
defensive.
people
Yeah.
in defensive, when people on the mainland like try to ask me about it, I don't really give them the real information because if I feel defensive about it because it is so colonized already.
Yeah, because they can get, yeah, and they can get judgy too, or they won't understand.
They won't
Right.
understand. And when they ask me for recommendations, I'm like, just go do the tourist thing. That's
Yeah.
what
Oh,
that's
me
there for.
too.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, when people ask me, "Oh, Hawaii, we're going to Hawaii. I need to know where, where to go. Where you?" Because then I'm like, "Oh, what if I tell them to go here?" And they're like, "Oh, that's not so great."
Mhm.
Or because we're partial to the West Side beaches, but I'm like, I don't want to send them down to Macau Beach or Waikiki Beach. I'm like, no, stay away, see the tourists away. Yeah, just stay in Waikiki. I said, oh, stay in Waikiki. Like they're geared towards tourists. They love the tourists over there. Stay on that side. Keep them away, right? It's I and you bring up a good subject. Like I don't feel as, and not in a bad way, like I don't feel as connected these days to my Hawaiian culture. I mean, I always have a connection, a spiritual connection, but like, I'm not teaching Lauren any hulas, or when I do dance hula, she's like, "What's that?" Like, it's so, my older children are like, "Oh, that's so great. Let's do it again." So it's so different. But that's on me. Like, I'm not, raising her in that environment. And like, I think it was so special, for us growing up with Papa. My dad, Papa
Oh yeah,
Boy.
to be a part of a halau.
Yeah, and he's singing, and remember you guys having to run around and pick flowers just to
Mhm.
go to Aloha Tower, right? To go
And
dance
dance for the tourists. Like,
for the tourists is very typical. And Papa would load everybody up in the van, drive you guys over there. You guys would put on your little show and then come home. And that was like, for a while, it was like weekly, right? I
mhm.
mean, it was, and that was, that was very typical.
It's such a weird thing because yeah, we were performing for the tourists, but it was such a Hawaiian operation. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's so low key. Our grandpa was teaching us. We were dancing at rest camp. Like it,
Yes, for parties and stuff. I know. And then, a lot of people, do they ask you if you can surf when you meet them? Do you go
yeah.
surfing? Do you go? I was like, in the canoe on the waves, but not on a board. But, my brothers,
I could surf on the board before I moved away, but I moved away and where
yeah,
am I gonna surf on the board? I don't know.
right. I go
I,
boogie
I
board. I couldn't stand up on a surfboard.
yeah,
Uncle
I
Raleigh was
was
really
full on. Yeah, I was like I was like Uncle Raleigh. I was skipping school to learn to surf.
You and all those other local girls who are surfers. That's pretty awesome, though. I mean, we were definitely water kids. Grew up at the beach. We were at the beach paddling canoes. That's where we heard a lot of Hawaiian too. I think some of the coaches they
Yeah,
taught.
there's so
Yeah.
many Hawaiian like learning how to tie like the yaku onto the boat is like a Hawaiian practice. Learning how to like rig up the
Oh,
canoe is a Hawaiian
yeah.
practice. Like learning how to steer a boat is a Hawaiian practice. So I think
We
we
were just
practice
thrown in there
so
as
much Hawaiian
steersmen.
culture um without even realizing that what I'm doing is an act of Polynesian resistance.
Yeah. So tell me about that.
I
That
don't
and
know. I When
Polynesian.
I paddled canoe for the first time, uh, my dad just dropped me off. He didn't fill out the papers. He didn't do anything. He was like, drop me off. He's like, you know where
He
Auntie
trusted.
sits.
Yeah.
So I had to go and fill out my form with Auntie Shannon by myself.
Yeah.
She took my little picture and they just told me where to go and I started paddling canoe for girls 12. I think I was like 9 years old.
Yeah. For people who don't know, paddling Hawaiian outrigger canoe was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun too.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, it's a competitive sport, but yeah, usually when you
Yeah.
started, you're so little too. Like you said, you were 9 paddling for 12s.
Yeah.
That's why you were the steersman because you're the smallest one in the boat.
Um, and then I think I paddled with Kamui for a few years, and then I paddled for Hawaiian at high school, and that's when I really got into not only just like paddling, but like beach because Kamui, like the canoe club stuff's from April to August, so
Yeah,
half the year, and then with the high
right.
school, I paddled from like September to December. So I spent almost every single day at the beach, almost the full year.
See, and that's cool. When I was in high school, they didn't have canoe clubs at Waianae. At least, yeah. I don't think any of the high schools had it.
And
That came
we had
after.
such an edge being able to practice at Pokai Bay compared to
Oh,
Kehimagu.
yeah.
Being out in the open ocean
Mhm.
um, was, I don't know, I had some amazing experiences, like just paddling straight out into the middle of nowhere, looking back, and the island is small.
Oh, and the water is so blue,
Hmm.
just beyond the break walls. It's so pretty out
The
there,
water's
especially that
so
side.
blue. Or
Yeah,
being in
side.
a boat of just six girls and having to navigate like waves together or having
Mhm.
to like push each other on. I remember I always think about this, a girl who had moved from the Big Island to come paddle, and she paddled with our high school team, and she was like, my coach always taught us that the boat knows your emotions, so if you guys don't get along, it could tell. And I still think about it.
I mean, I guess that's true because if you're out of sync, like I paddle with the same group of girls from when I was probably like 4th grade all the way through. Even after I got married, having babies, everything, I kind of paddle with the same group of girls. So you get so in sync with them. You know who's gonna be your stroker. You know that stroker style. You know who's gonna be flicking their blade up. So you don't want to sit behind them. I was one of the blade flickers. I always used to get yelled at about that. But so it's like just you feel, I mean, I guess I never heard it put that way, but I can understand, you know that the emotion of the boat, you can tell that the boat can tell. Yeah. And then we had some great coaches too, so super like rooted Hawaiian coaches, in the culture, in the water, in the waves, as Uncle Rona, right? He would know, you know how to treat the ocean.
Hmm.
Yeah, so we did have a really golden childhood growing up,
I really
and
think so.
yeah, I mean, knock on wood that those kinds of childhoods continue for other people.
Yeah,
Because
I think it's just
not a lot of our friends had the same upbringing as us. So
no, but I do feel like it's such a mixed emotions because I know so many Hawaiian kids are getting more Hawaiian knowledge than ever before, but I now I know they're getting priced out like never before too. Everybody's having to move now like never before,
I know.
especially after like the Maui wildfires and stuff like that. Who's gonna get to
Right.
move
Yeah.
back?
I know. When I left Hawaii, my intention was to always go back. That was in 2001 when I left. That's when I left, you
Yeah.
know? I remember it was right around the time, I think it was 2000, 9/11 was 2001, right?
Mhm.
I remember waking up that morning at uncle's house because we were staying with uncle and auntie, and getting the kids up. The first day of school was September 11th. And uncle was watching the TV, and I said, "What's going on, uncle?" He's having coffee, and I went to go make him coffee. He said, "Oh, honey, an airplane flew into the one of the twin towers." I was like, "Oh my god!" So I was like, made my cup of coffee, and I was standing next to him. I was just about to go get the kids up to go start getting them ready for school, their first day of school from when we moved to Vegas, from Hawaii. And the second plane hit. We saw it real time. It was so crazy. That's how I always remember, because I'm not the best
I
for dates. That's how I remember going.
remember when that happened. It had already happened when everybody in Hawaii woke up.
Oh yeah,
And
because I called Uncle Scott, because Uncle Scott was oh wait, he was the like, I think he was like the lieutenant commanding officer at one of the, the Air Force bases there. So I called Auntie Donna, and I was like, "What do you guys know what's happening? Watch the news." They didn't know, and right after I called, she woke him up. Right after I called, that's when he got the call that he had to go in and down all the, scramble the fighter jets and down all the planes, and yeah, it was crazy. But
that's
yeah,
crazy.
right.
Yeah, that's another thing that makes Hawaii so different than the mainland. Is I know like there's a huge delay. It's like hours behind. And now we have phones and internet. Nothing's really, there's no delay. Everybody
Weather.
gets the same news or whatever. But there was a sense of isolation and apathy towards the mainland. I didn't really
Mhm.
care what was going on up here. I didn't
Right,
really,
that's true.
how much did it really affect me in my day to day? Not really much.
Yeah. That's kind of true. I think growing up when I was little, because Papa was in the military, they watched the news all the time. And a lot of my friends, their parents didn't even like, I don't care what's going on too. But it really affected Papa's job, and grandma's from Oregon. So she had family there. So she would watch. And that was something that was instilled in us to keep up on, you know, current issues and stuff, which is so weird because in today's environment, I don't even want to watch the news.
I know.
Even when I'm on YouTube and I see it on my feed, I say, "Oh, nope, nope, I'm not watching that. Oh, nope, go away. Nope, la 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 la. I don't want to hear." I depend on my husband. Oh, what's going on in the world? Do I have to worry about anything? No. Oh, no. Okay, then I don't want to know. Yeah, which is sad. Which I shouldn't be like that, but
No.
um, I think a way I can feel more connected to Hawaii is by having more conversations like this, like hearing. I mean, we're only like scratching the surface. This is just the beginning, of trying to understand more, of how there's a lot of Hawaiians feeling displaced, even though we left by choice. We say, "Oh yeah, we left by choice," but a lot of people, yeah, they have the choice to stay or go. But some of
But
them are
like
really
how much
conditioned.
choice did we really have? You know what I mean? Like yeah, we just ultimately we're the ones who decided to go, but like we had to go because if we like where else? You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
right. Right, because I mean, cost of living is so high, and now, you know, I don't want to keep saying names, but like my son just moved back to Hawaii, right?
Mhm.
He was like, "Oh my God, mom, I had to go to the store, and the amount of money I spent on groceries is astronomical." And if you know who I'm talking about, he's like, he
He's
hold
dying.
his money
He's
like this, he
dying.
took his money like this. Okay, yeah. But he's smart, I mean. He's successful. He's able to save money and buy a house. So, but
Oh no, it
he's, yeah,
is. Um, I don't know. I don't know how much choice we have. And so I think a lot about the Hawaiian diaspora and like people moving, and especially people like us, we had to move, people who are forced out of their home. But then I also think about the people who emigrated not emigrated, but
my,
immigrated like
yeah,
during the
immigrated.
plantation times. Like I
Mhm.
am I only check the Hawaiian box like on forums and stuff like that. I know we joked earlier, but like Native Hawaiian is an option. I only check that option, but I could also check the Caucasian option because obviously my grandma's from Oregon, but my
Mhm.
family immigrated to Hawaii from Portugal, from the Philippines, from, you know what I mean? So there is another aspect of my identity that I don't understand because of
Mhm.
like plantation working.
Right. Right. And now with the whole like 23andMe, you can
I
check your
know.
DNA where you're from, which is so interesting because,
Haven't
you've
done it
been
yet.
raised, to really think one culture, and then you have all these other options now that you can learn about. But, how do you really connect with a culture if you're not being raised in their, not only learning the culture, but like their traditions, you know? Like people will, because yeah, Papa's Filipino, like for us, and I know from your mom's side, you have more Hawaiian than anything, you know, and
Hmm.
it's not the easiest to connect when you're not being raised in it, but at the same time it's kind of exciting because now we have all these different options, these different opportunities to learn about more in depth about cultures, like, and for good reason, because that's
Hmm.
who we are. um but then there's more conversations to be had, like what's culture, what's tradition, that means to you. I know that there's the definition, in the dictionary meanings, but like what does it mean to you? Like culturally, how are you trying, what are the things that you're trying to do to give, your son awareness of, I know he's just so little, but you're already putting him in
Hmm.
Hawaiian, language programs. You know, do you see yourself moving back to Hawaii at any point, you think?
No.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
I'll
mean,
never
I never say
say
never.
never. I'll never say never, but um I don't know. I I I will be eventually qualify Hawaiian homestead, but even that is like
Six.
scraps for what Hawaiians are owed. You know what I mean?
Man, get what you
Um
can though. If you
they'll
can
let me have
get,
a 99-year lease on a piece of land that I have to build a house on. You know what I'm saying?
right. That's true. Right. It's so like backwards. Some of
Um
the laws and the ways they have to like get, even though it's obvious now how everything went down, and no one can deny, you know, how it all I mean, it's the age old story, the same thing, even like the Native American part, um, how we were raised, like all those stories, it's the same story,
it's the same
you
story.
know. Yeah, sad. And it's so funny because we're a part of each of those stories.
I know.
Each of those stories, where it makes up like who we are, you know. I'm not talking about just humanity. I'm talking about like you and I,
Hmm.
the same family. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I would ever go back to live just because I know that like uh I would have to live in like a tiny plantation style home with two bedrooms, no AC, no garage, like
And
and
even
not
that would be like
and my dad
eight,
would have to live
900,000.
there and who
Yeah.
knows who else would have to live there for that to happen.
Right.
Um, I don't know. I don't think I would go back specifically for those reasons. If I could, maybe I would if the circumstances were right. I mean, it always feels like home and I always feel like I have a right to be there. But
Right.
I don't know if I'm gonna go back.
Right. I know. It's it's kind of sad when you think about it like that and you say it like that because you don't know. I mean, but at least there's always right. Like there's, excuse me, like when every family. I don't know if you ever heard this. Like every family has a pico, a place to go and rest. It's like a gathering place. Whether they know it or not, there is a place where you go to heal. For our family, a lot of the time, for a very, very long time, it was Uluvehi. And it's still pretty much Uluvehi. There's still, family that go to Uluvehi when we need it. It's the North Shore. We have
Or
Entebbe,
wherever grandma's living.
or wherever grandma is living, which is on the North Shore, is kind of like the gathering place.
Mhm.
So it's like a place of healing. So,
Mhm.
and it's comforting to know,
Yeah, and
not
I
comforting,
wouldn't
if
if
anything catastrophic happen in our lives, we always have some place to
yeah,
go.
that is one
you
thing
know
that makes me confident in the world and the decisions I make and any risk I take is that if I fall flat, I have a handful of places that I can go back to.
right, right. It is comforting to know that you have that.
We were privileged because a lot of people Waianae is also a poverty-filled place, and that comes with abuse, that comes with hunger, and that comes with a lot of other uncomfortable things that not a lot of people want to go back to. So
Right.
to be able to go back to Uluwei, to be able to have grown up in the same bedroom that my dad did at one point, is a
Hmm.
privilege that I don't think that a lot of my peers were able to have, and I do feel lucky to have that.
And fortunate to have family members who are willing to open themselves
Mhm.
up, because
Mhm.
again, there's not a lot of, it's like, oh, you can come live with me. Oh yeah, but
Yeah.
it's like, other family our family member, they're like, no, yeah, come rest your head here, until you get back on your feet. We all contribute, don't take advantage, but it's like a place that I know that I can always feel safe, and I always have some place. I'll
Mhm.
never be homeless. I'll never be alone.
Mhm.
I think that's one thing that's really awesome, about our family. We can all go, all my nieces and nephews, we can go months and months, without speaking, but we know once we all come together, we have this kind of same
Mhm.
commonality, that we all kind of have this same, you know, life experience. I remember when I got remarried. I remember when I was asked to get married. I was so happy. I was like, just it was unexpected. It was a shock because I didn't even know it was coming. But in a split second, I knew I was gonna say yes, because I love this man. But at the same moment, I was like, you know, if I marry this man, I probably will never move back to Hawaii.
Mhm. That's
Maybe not
also
exactly like that, but that
with
understanding.
me.
Yeah.
It's
So, I
also
mean, because
another reason why I know I won't. Hawaii is not his home.
yeah, yeah. Nice to visit. Good to know that you have family and someplace to fall back on, even though they open their arms like this. Come, all of you guys, come, come. But it's just a different. Again, talking about cultures is a different culture. Yeah. So, and I know, I was talking about like not raising, you know, Lauren with a lot of the Hawaiian culture. And I kind of feel like guilty about that, but I do share with her a lot of me. It's just different being here, and different. It's just different. So even
No,
though
I
I'm
cause
not Jewish, mhm, I
no,
was gonna
I was
say
just
my
gonna
family
say,
is more Jewish. Yeah.
um, it's more important to be raised i- in your area. I think kids in Hawaii, it's important for them to learn Hawaiian cultures and value and stuff because that will help them where they are. Kids in the mainland, or especially for Lauren, she's growing up in a Jewish community. It's important for her to be
Feel
immersed
that
in those kinds
connection,
of things. Yeah,
right?
I really think so too.
That's a good point, man, babe. This conversation could go so much more deeper.
I know. I know. I know.
I think this was a good first episode.
Okay, if you want me back, we can
I definitely want you
talk some
back
more.
all the time.